Our host has arrived. Big round of applause. We'll let you dip into the starter in just a few minutes' time. There's a lovely curated menu for the occasion, so that's something to look forward to. So we are, and Manoj in a minute, we're standing in the way of your dinner. So we'll be as concise but entertaining and informative. I think you can eat but do listen. Rule number one, listen. So we've got a massive, fantastic meal coming up. I just want to welcome our host to the stage, and I want to express our huge gratitude to him, the Honourable Piyush Goyal, for bringing us together today on the eve, of course, of the 2023 India Global Annual Summit, India Global Forum Annual Summit, which of course takes place. And by the way, our host has spoken at every single one over the last 5 years. I gather that's a record, one of his many records. So big round of applause there. And he's not only a talker at these wonderful IGF events, he's also, as if you need knowing, Minister of Commerce and Industry, Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, and Minister of Textiles as well. And also, as if that wasn't enough, he's leader of the upper house as well. So quite a few titles, quite a few achievements, been in politics for 35 years, am I right, Minister? 35 years. You've had quite a busy year or so, haven't you, concluding trade agreements. I think you need to teach the UK one or two things about swift trade agreements, because one of my favorite facts about you is you led the signing of the FTA with the UAE, which is the fastest ever negotiated FTA globally. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, if you were to advise any country that wanted to complete a swift FTA, what's the secret to that?
Thank you, Mark, for your generous words. Warm welcome to all the distinguished friends who've gathered here. And I do wish the investors' interaction today, but more importantly, the global forum meeting tomorrow, all the very best. And I do hope you come up with some really solid deliverables at the end of the day tomorrow, which can help us do our job better. A small aside, 35 years in active public life, certainly, but my late mother used to often say that when I was only 2 or 3 years old, I used to stand outside my home with a flag of the Jan Sangh, which was the original party to which I belonged, or my family belonged, and keep asking every passerby whom they were going to vote for. So if I was to add that, we are looking at, if I disclose my age, nearly 55 years.
You started early, you started young.
But friends, if it's no rocket science to conclude an FTA. You can do the same job in a long period of time, you can do the same job in a short period of time. As long as there are 2 or 3 basic elements where you can build up an understanding between both parties. And I think it's the same as we do in business. It's not much different. The first and foremost is trust. The second would possibly be sensitivity and understanding of each other. And third is really the bonding that you build up between the two negotiating teams. If you can get that right in the beginning, where they understand each other, where they are able to acknowledge real difficulties on the ground, or on both sides, and take quick decisions. I see no reason why FTAs have to be such long-drawn affairs. Of course, in a way, you're also crystal gazing into the future, because an FTA binds you down, commits you to several aspects for the next 20, 30, 50 years. So you are crystal gazing into the future when you sign an FTA. It's much easier with a smaller country. As it gets into multilateral FTAs like the one with the EU, obviously you have to look at its impact over 27 countries on your one nation. So you are looking at what will be the situation between France and India, what will it be with Germany, India, while they have to, each one of them has to look at only India. I have to look at 27, so I'm creating a matrix between 27 countries. But I still believe that if the sincerity of purpose is there, and if we can build up a sensitivity to each other's requirements and positions, the current positions.
Do you have that sensitivity? Do you have that relationship with the UK? Because we're still awaiting the FTA. I know there's been recent events in London which have been difficult. I won't say what they are, but has that hindered the progress at all? I mean, can you give us a sort of a time limit as to when we think it might happen?
I've never looked at a free trade agreement or an economic partnership with deadlines. Never. And that's the approach.
There was that Diwali deadline. Last year,
that was not a deadline. That was a desire that the then British Prime Minister had expressed. And I had even mentioned that why Diwali, we'll do it in June. But as I said, it needs a lot more deeper understanding of each other, understanding of each other's sensitivities. After all, as I've been explaining to my counterpart and to the negotiating teams, this is an agreement between two unequals. I bring to the table 1.4 billion people market. May not be very rich today, but in the years to come, as the years pass by, we'll be the largest single market opportunity anybody can get in the world. Our per capita income today is only $2,500. The UK would be probably $40,000, $50,000. We have to calibrate the two economies' current position and then see how we will, over the years, look at that equation, getting closer or nearer to each other. So we have to bring in that sensitivity as an overlay into whatever we agree. We have to recognize the fact that we have grown 10x in the last 25 years and will grow another 10x in the next 25 years. I don't see the same opportunity on the other side. So I have to again calibrate for that. The UK already has more than half their products open for business at zero duties. India would be opening up a much larger opportunity. So what is an FTA? It gives you an edge over the others who don't have an FTA. For me, that edge will be much smaller when I look at the UK market compared to the edge that I would be offering to UK businesses with a larger market which is currently closed. So to give you a perspective, I think we have only 2.5% of our products which are currently at zero duty. And our average duties are much higher compared to what UK has at present. And half or 55 or 60% of their product lines are already at zero duty. So the delta that I'm offering in the years to come is much larger. And no agreement will be successful unless it's fair, equitable, and balanced. So if we can strike the right balance, and if we can help my counterparts there understand these very different positions of negotiation from which we start and where we hope to end, I think the agreement could be done very, very fast.
Yeah.
But the ball is probably...
In a word, this year, yeah? This year?
No, as I said, it's the agreement has to stand on its own merits.
Okay.
It can happen even in 1 month if the understanding is easier and faster on both sides.
I've got so much I want to throw at Minister. I'm just going to quickly move it on and get on to manufacturing. Who's heard those comments by Lord Desai? He recently made a statement that Atmaneer Bharat campaign is, to use his words, utter nonsense. Now, you yourself oversaw the launch of production-linked incentive schemes. You want to bring manufacturing center stage. You think it's a significant industry to drive growth, to create jobs. He's basically saying this whole self-reliant India thing is utter nonsense, and he brings up manufacturing. He says no one's going to invest in the manufacturing sector. What's your response to him?
Well, I only think it'll be good if he starts listening also a little bit rather than only talking. He's a very dear friend of mine, so I can take that liberty of punting that statement on him. On more than one occasion, and of course, Lord Desai is a busy person and he has a lot on his plate as a member of the House of Lords over there. So maybe he's missed out on what I've been saying. But I've been on record on not less than a few dozen occasions where I've explained that India recognizes, when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat or a self-reliant India, that it's not as if we are closing the doors of India to the rest of the world. In fact, if at all, Atmanirbhar Bharat talks about opening the doors wider. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been doing these FTAs with Australia, UAE, or talking to the EU, Canada, UK. We wouldn't have had the 4 ministers of EFTA countries desperately trying to get an appointment to come to India and start talking for an FTA with the EFTA countries. And they're also, by the way, they're talking of beating UK and Canada and EU to it. They're saying, why not we do it by August, when we finish 75 years of relationship between between Switzerland and India. So it's not for no reason that the whole world is wanting to talk to us, and we are talking to the whole world. Because we believe in the theory that no country can do everything themselves. Every country will have its competitive advantage, or the theory of comparative advantages between nations. We recognize and respect that. So, but wherever we are competent and capable, we cannot allow Indian marketplace to be a dumping ground of substandard goods coming in at opaque and non-transparent pricing from some of the countries which you very well recognize. India, when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are looking at becoming self-reliant in areas and products and goods and services where we can see that we have an edge, but are being held back because over the years, over last many 60, 70 years, we did not create that enabling environment to help domestic industry grow and truly show its capabilities. We are trying to create that opportunity, and I'm very confident that in the years to come, Indian industry, which has now really got into the act with a lot of vigor and enthusiasm, will surely be able to get back that mojo in Indian manufacturing. And there will continue to be areas where we will be importing products, but ideally we want to import from friendly countries, from democracies and countries which are transparent in their economy, they are rules-based, they're public in the subsidies they give or the way they promote and support their enterprises, and there's reciprocity. It can't be that Europe can claim and demand that they will set the standards and those will be the recognized or global standards. While we recognize they have a right to make their own standards, India is making its own standards also. And we are aligning ourselves with the rest of the world, with the modern developed world, because we do believe if we have to become a developed nation, we'll have to engage with the world, but as an equal. And that's what we are meaning when we talk about
another thing you need, especially on the important subject of sustainability and capital, attracting capital, is funding, Minister. How does India ensure sticky, sustainable global capital? How do you ensure that that's attracted to Indian assets? Let's say I was an asset manager. Why should I, when I've got the whole world as a potential place to invest, why should I invest in sustainable investments in India?
Well, first of all, we must recognize that sustainability is something that is not new to India. It's something that for us in India was important maybe a few thousand years ago also. This is one country which respects nature and every element of nature since times immemorial. This is one country where recycling is not something we have to start teaching people like we have to do in your country or in the West or the developed world. This is one country where waste is not easily acceptable as much as it is in the developed world. Just to give you a context with my own personal experience, as a child, if I was to ever leave a tube light, you know, in our days we used to have more tube lights than we had bulbs when I was young, or a fan, since air conditioning used to be a luxury at that point of time. If you left a room leaving a light or a fan on, and the mother would see it, there's nothing short of a spank right there. It's unfortunate that we can't do that anymore.
You're not allowed to now.
No, my kids have to see that, but they're not going to go complaining. And I do believe that level of consciousness against waste is something that was germane to India's thinking. So sustainability is a lesson the West need not teach us. We already are conscious of that. But we are not responsible for the mess up there. We didn't cause the global climate change crisis. Supporting 17% of the world's population, our contribution to the carbon up there is less than 2.5%. So I think it's time that the world recognizes, on a pure polluters pay principle or pure economic principle, that there'll have to be a global effort to help countries like India also grow their economies, but support them with technology, with finance, all of which has been promised on various fora. I mean, there was $100 billion, for example, promised every year, 15 years ago, for the developing and less developed countries to adopt sustainability.
Can India, as president of the G20, push that over the line, ensure that 100...
Mark, I can assure you we've been pushing that on every available forum,
but
G20 included.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to do that. But that does not mean the developed world can push us into an introduction with Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch and say, they will provide that fund. They will provide it in any case. They will look at our credit rating and provide us the funds. Sanjay Nair is here. He'll tell you they don't even give you a 10 bips reduction on the cost of credit because it's green or sustainable project. Everything is credit linked or rating linked. This $100 billion was to be grant based, was to be long tenor, was to be very, very low cost. So I think the West first needs to understand their responsibility. Investment is coming into India on its own strength, on the strength of the market opportunity. Investment is coming in because this is the only place which gives you a good return. By the way, there was a study that came out recently which showed that if you take a 20-year horizon or even a 10-year horizon or any horizon for that matter, more companies on the Indian stock exchange, listed on the Indian stock exchange, have given a 20% plus CAGR return than any other part of the world. In fact, they called it a 2020, taking an analogy from cricket. More than 20% of our top 500 companies on Indian stock exchanges gave a consistent 20% CAGR return over a 20-year horizon.
Some are saying that the Inflation Reduction Act in the US makes the US a better place to put your money if you're an overseas investor, if you're thinking sustainable. That's not true?
We welcome that. It's perfectly fine with us. And we look at the United States as a trusted partner of India. We look at the United States as a very valuable country with which we are expanding our trade and our geopolitical engagement. In fact, they are our largest trading partner, the United States of America, and we deeply value that relationship. So if IRA comes in, I would think that at some point of time they would look at India as an integral part of the IRA.
Minister, I want to, because you mentioned Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch, perfect opportunity to segue to SVB. You've heard of SVB, you've heard of Signature, you've heard of Silvergate, you've heard of Credit Suisse, some are even talking about Deutsche Bank now. It's a tricky time for the global banking industry. A lot of venture capital companies around the world relied on SVB for banking services. The venture capital industry is reliant on it. Has India seen the ripples?
Not at all.
No ripples at all.
You saw the Honorable Finance Minister yesterday had a meeting with all the Indian banks. And that has been Prime Minister Modi's unique contribution to the Indian economy, where we've strengthened all the macroeconomic institutions and parameters, fundamental parameters over the last 8-9 years, to an extent that from a point where India traditionally had double-digit inflation and very high interest rates, until 2014, if any year we had a double-digit inflation, it wouldn't make big news in the country. It was a given. In fact, in a recent interview with a former finance minister at the India Today conclave, when the interviewer asked him that, there used to be double-digit inflation during the Congress government's rule in India, sadly, he not only acknowledged it, which was the reality, there was no choice. The sad part was he tried to blame it on his other colleague, finance minister, who's no more with us. Instead of acknowledging that government is a whole, it's one entity. I cannot say that, hey, I'm not responsible if there's a problem in India and somebody else is. Prime Minister Modi has brought the concept of whole of the government, whole of the nation acting as one entity. And we all work together to ensure that inflation has remained moderate over the last 9 years. In fact, if you look at a 9-year period in India's independent history of 75 years, we've never had such a long run of low inflation as we've had over the last 9 years. So even now, our inflation is at about 6%, give and take 40 basis points up and down. Even in the worst crisis, post-COVID, or in the era of war, even then our inflation went up about 1.5%, and we've still taken it very seriously. A group of ministers sits periodically, regularly, monitors food inflation, monitors commodities, monitors what's happening in different sectors, is in continuous dialogue with stakeholders, and that's why our banks are safe. We don't allow anybody to interfere in banking. Gone are the days where there used to be telephone banking, where somebody from Delhi would call up and say, give Mr. X a loan, or don't give Mr. Y a loan. All that is history. They are running professionally, they are running on merit, and that's why today Indian banks are safe. You look at the bank balance sheets, most of them would have a net NPA probably at a 1 or 2% level today. Through COVID, the Prime Minister and the Honorable Finance Minister really led the economy very, very smartly. We didn't splurge, but yet protected and supported our industry, our people, in whatever way it was required, so that we were able to overcome COVID with minimal damage, both to the economy, to human life, and to lifestyles.
Minister, we are running out of time. I've overrun really, really quickly before I get Manoj up here, just to say a final thanks. Your message to all our wonderful guests tonight, all your wonderful guests tonight, you're hosting, I'm not. Thank you very much for that. And to those who are going to watch this online, social media in coming days and weeks, what's your message as we look ahead to tomorrow, to the IGF Annual Summit, the theme being setting the pace? How can India set the pace today in this global economy?
I think more important than what I say is what others say about India. And I suspect all of the distinguished friends who have gathered here today are well tuned to what the Italian Prime Minister had to say about India, what the Japanese are talking about India, what Gina Raimondo and Catherine Tai have said about India, what world-renowned investment bankers or bankers have said about India, global CEOs have said about India, what Virat is doing in India, adding production on Apple products into India, expanding them hugely. And thank you, Virat, for meeting your commitment of adding $1 billion more than what you had committed at the beginning of the year in terms of Apple product exports in the current year. Incidentally, for those of you who may have missed it, and you may like to convey to Lord Meghnad Desai also, 2 years ago, India was exporting $500 billion worth of goods and services from India. Last year, we grew from 500 billion to 676 billion. And people thought that we've kind of peaked out and things are going to get tougher. The global economy is in turmoil. All global statistics talked about global trade seeing downturn or at flat levels or 1% growth levels. That's what the IMF and all have projected. I'm happy to share with all of you, 500 went to 676 last year. We'll close the current year on 31st of March, but as of today, we've crossed in our 75th year of independence, which we are celebrating, $750 billion.
Yeah.
We still have 3-4 more days of working. 30th is a holiday. So we have 27, 28, 29, and then 31st. 4 more days. So
Which
let's
is a
see
record,
how much
which is a
more
record,
beyond.
yeah.
It's an all-time
Yeah.
record.
Because last year's was 675, wasn't it? So you're
676.
smashing the record, yeah.
So 500 to 676 to 750 plus. I don't know where we'll stop. We have 4 more working days. And these 4 days are when the Indian industry drives the most. We have industry secretary also here, Mr. Anurag Jain. He'll be able to give you the excitement in Indian industry today. So I can only say, as you asked me for a message for our friends here, I'll say it in Hindi and translate it for all those who are not conversant with Hindi. The Honorable Prime Minister at an event, or was it on 15th August? I'm missing out. Maybe my team can give me some input. 15th August. He said, "Yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai." Is that right? Yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai. This is the time. This is the right time. And this is India's time. You'll miss it at your peril.
Piyush Goyal, big round of applause. Thank record-breaking minister with record-breaking figures. Let's bring up the IGF founder, the IGF chairman, Professor Manoj Ladwa, to say a few final words.
Mark.
Thank you very much
Lovely
indeed.
talking to you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Wow. I think I speak on behalf of everybody in this room by saying that this was nothing but a tour de force of what India is and what India will be. So thank you ever so much to our host, the Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal. Please give him a wonderful round of applause. And of course, also to Mark for being such a great sport. It's not easy these days being a Brit in India, is it?
That's
But
fair.
thank you, Mark, for...
BBC?
No. Independent, thankfully.
No, but thank you, Mark, for being such a great sport and engaging this. Friends, we are on the eve of India Global Forum's annual summit, and as Mark has said, the Honourable Minister holds the world record for addressing every single one of our forums and summits, not just in the UK, but in the UAE and in India, in person. The first one was when the then Foreign Secretary of the UK, Boris Johnson, joined us for our awards, all the way through to today as well. So it's not only a testament of the pride that we have in the work that we do, that you have confidence in us, but also the fact that you are so hugely popular with the global community. Whatever you say, and sometimes they may disagree, but the fact is you say it as it is. So thank you ever so much for that. As Mark said, that we are on the eve of India Global Forum's annual summit, and the summit title is Setting the Pace. And it is all about ensuring that India can present the very best of its talent, its technology, its innovation to the rest of the world and say, hey guys, we have the skills, we have the scale, but we also now have the intent and the speed. And so tomorrow is going to be a really, really unique event at the Taj Palace and the Darbar Hall. For those of you that are season ticket holders of the Darbar Hall, I want to tell you one thing, that tomorrow is going to be different. Everybody is a speaker. everybody is a speaker tomorrow. And we've got 35 concurrent roundtables that will happen across the morning on a multitude of different subjects. And many of the hosts for those tables are here today, all with one purpose: setting the pace and ideas for India and a new India. And so you will, Minister, receive a report at the end of it of the collective ideas of everybody in this room as well.
Give you a cue.
You want to give me a? Okay. And so now, finally, if that wasn't a cue, there is finally, because I know I stand between you and a sumptuous meal, kindly hosted.
I'm not giving you that cue. I saw him waving his
No. My bosses are at the back, my India Global Forum team. Please give them a fantastic round of applause as well. And of course, our host, the Minister, and his fantastic team, and the Ministry, and of course, the Secretary as well, for being such wonderful partners for India Global Forum, all the support that you give us to enable us to contribute to India's globalization story and provide that small bit of amplification of the wonderful work that is going on here, and basically saying to the world, the glass is half full. And yes, there may be issues, but the glass is half full about India, and there's a lot of positivity. And as the Prime Minister says, the glass is full for India as well.
No. We don't have any arrogance of that sort.
No.
We have opportunities.
Opportunities. The glass is full of opportunities. How's that? That's good. So that's all from me. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow for a morning that will be 3.5 hours of setting the pace. And Mark, you'll see again tomorrow, along with Edie, who's at the back, who's another one of our amazing hosts. So thank you ever so much. Enjoy the rest of the evening of a wonderful meal and some networking as well. Thank you.
All the best.